Hello, I'm Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, and welcome to another episode of the RSO Roundup. We have an interesting show today to talk about. I've mentioned before, what we do here is we highlight different areas and aspects and people in our department. Mm-hmm. And today we have Corporal Roberts from the Coroners Bureau, and we are going to talk about everything coroner today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So before we get going with all of the good stuff about dead bodies and how we investigate dead bodies, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to this point in your life to be a deputy coroner?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started my career with the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office in 1994. And then I came over to Riverside County in 2001 and started out as a coroner technician, which means I assisted our doctors with autopsies. And then from there in 2005, I got promoted to deputy coroner. And the whole time that I was with the department, I was at our Paris facility because we have 2 offices in the county. And then just recently, just last year, I got promoted to coroner corporal, and now I'm covering our East End office, which is out in Indio.
Very nice. Very nice. So you've been with 2 different agencies, but you've been with us for a long time.
I have 21 years now.
Very nice.
Yes.
Time flies.
It does.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting for the people out there listening that, when we talk about deputies, we have many different deputies in our department. We have deputies assigned to corrections. We have deputies assigned to patrol. We have deputies assigned to court. And I don't know or if anybody even realizes that we have deputy coroners that actually go out and do the investigations to death scenes.
Right. So basically what happens with us is that anytime somebody dies at a residence or at a hospital, we'll get phone calls from the deputy sheriffs. We also work with other agencies such as the Riverside Police Department, the smaller agencies. They will call us and let us know, hey, there was a death at XYZ residence. They'll give us the information, and we will determine whether or not that death falls within the coroner's jurisdiction. If it's a natural death, for example, of an 89-year-old female that has a significant medical history, like a heart history or some type of cancer, or they die at home on hospice, typically we release that decedent to the mortuary. If it's anything like an accidental drug overdose, a suicide, somebody falls off their roof and sustains head trauma, or a homicide, even buried bodies, we go out on those cases, and we are basically the eyes and the ears for the forensic pathologist who will perform the autopsy and determine the cause of death.
So when you take custody of that body and you bring it back to the Coroner's Bureau, and then you are basically that liaison from that scene to that doctor as that doctor tries to pretty much determine the cause, the mode, the manner of death.
That's correct. We actually have a Latin phrase within the Coroner's Bureau. I think all agencies use this, and I can't say the Latin term, but in English it basically says, we represent the dead while we speak for the living. So that's what we like to go off of. Oftentimes, me, myself, I can't speak for everybody else, but I like to talk to my decedents sometimes, just tell me what's going on with you. Tell me what's happening, because the decedent gives you the story of what's going on with them, what happened to them. And then that's where we report back to the doctor and give them the information of what was happening in the field.
Very interesting.
Yes.
So just to clarify for everyone, and in case some people don't know, we have deputies. I'm the sheriff, so they are sheriff's deputies.
Correct.
Well, I'm also the coroner.
You are.
And so you are deputy coroners.
Correct.
And you act on behalf of the coroner, going out and doing your portion of that death investigation for that completed one that combines the doctor saying, all the medical reasons and what they find in autopsies and things like that. But that's where deputy coroner comes from, is you're a deputy for the coroner.
It is.
Very
it
nice.
Is, yes.
So it was even to myself, when I was a deputy, when you have that death, I mean, I don't want to say it's nice, but I liked calling you out to do that because I didn't want to do it. I don't want to be turning and looking and moving dead bodies. Right. And it's not, your job is not I don't want to mean it disrespectful or anything, because it's certainly not, but it's not a glamorous
Not by any means.
job.
Right.
You are dealing with I mean, some of the deaths that we find, I mean, you mentioned earlier that, digging up people and, people have been dead for quite some time. So that decomposed body is not really something
that everybody can handle. Yes. Right. Not everybody can handle. You have to be a very, very strong, not only physically but emotionally strong person to come out and mentally just make sure you get through that situation. For sure. And we do see some crazy things out there, things that people can't fathom. We get calls all the time that people think they could do our job. Well, I watch CSI all the time. Yeah, but that's made for TV. And I'll admit they have some pretty awesome graphics on those shows, but that's not real life. They don't get to see what we see. They don't get to smell the smells that we smell because it isn't glamorous. And, there aren't a lot of deputies or officers that do like to help us. They will if they have to, but a lot of times they're squirming away from us because they know that we're there and we're going to handle that decedent.
Yeah. I will say that it got easier for me, but I remember the first time that I had to actually touch a dead body. Mm-hmm. That's an experience.
It is.
Because your brain is telling you that that's a person.
Right.
But there's no longer life in there, and it really isn't a person anymore, and you actually feel that. It's hard. I don't know if I could ever be able to describe that, but it was certainly a different feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us that have been doing this job for quite some time is, yes, that decedent is somebody's loved one, that's somebody's son, somebody's daughter, their husband, their wife. We do treat them with the utmost dignity and respect. It doesn't matter if they're an angel on earth or if they have a rap sheet a million miles long, they're still somebody's loved ones. Yeah. So we do treat them with the utmost dignity and respect. And I think one thing that helps us, because we do deal with death every single day, it's morbid. We, like I said, we see things that other people don't typically see on a day-to-day basis. People drive by that car accident and, they want to get that one little glimpse of the dead body, and we're like, move it along. But, they don't get to see that all the time. And so one thing that we have to look at is it's just the body. It's just the shell. The soul is gone.
Right.
And you don't have to be overly religious to think about it in that aspect. But we do still treat them with dignity and respect.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that I've been reached out to by family members mm-hmm. or friends or something that were also at the scene or that you had to deal with afterward, before we release the body to a mortuary or something, mm-hmm. and the amount of respect they have for you all, and how they tell me how they were treated was just over the top.
Right.
So it does take a special person to do it. Tell us, what's a day in the life of Corporal Roberts? Your day, how does your day start and end?
So we work 12-hour shifts. I work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And like I said, I work out in the desert. So my day starts a little earlier than everybody else. I'm up at about 3:45 in the morning and get ready, and I make my hour and 15-minute drive into Indio, which I actually don't mind. It's kind of a little bit of reflection time and, time to think about things and how the day might go, although you can never really determine what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. We arrive into the office and we ask our coworkers from the night shift if there's anything holding. Sometimes we have cases where we can barely even get our stuff in the door and we're heading right back out into the field. We respond, like I said, to all those different types of cases. There's other days where we just handle office work. We're talking to doctors and nurses and mortuaries, taking those unattended cases from the deputies and officers. And that's typically our day-to-day. Sometimes we get out after our 12-hour mark, and there's other days we go all the way to 16. It's one of those things, if we're out, say, on a homicide scene and it's 1,800 hours, we can't just go bye-bye.
Yeah.
We have to stay out there and complete the case
There's lots
until
of
it's
overtime
done.
Involved.
There is.
Call-outs in the middle of the night.
You know what? We actually don't get called out. We're not on call.
Because someone's working?
Because somebody's working. So we are a 24/7 operation. So we always have deputies and usually sergeants on duty 24/7. We used to have to do call-outs in the middle of the night, and thankfully we don't have that anymore. I'm too old for that kind of stuff.
We're still short people, so if anybody out there is listening, watching, we are always hiring.
We are. So between our two offices right now, we have 2 coroners lieutenants, we have 7 sergeants, we have 22 deputy coroners, 2 coroner corporals. There's myself and another corporal who's in our Paris office. And we're definitely bringing more in. I think we have a new person starting here next week at the start of the pay period. We have our coroner technicians. I think we have about 14 coroner technicians, and they're the ones that assist our forensic pathologists with the autopsies. So we're definitely a busy 2 offices.
Yes, and the coroner's bureau is really, I mean, even including the doctors, this is it is an investigative body. It is from the time you get notified until that doctor has completed his report, it's an investigation into how someone died and the cause of their death.
Absolutely. A lot of times people think, oh, the deputy coroners, they're just body picker-uppers, but that's not us. We take all of that information from the deputies, the officers, hospital staff. We're the ones that make the decision on whether or not that person falls within the coroner's jurisdiction. And if they do, we're writing full-fledged 3 to 8 page reports sometimes, depending on the circumstances of the death.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a process. And then if they have a full autopsy that's performed, same thing. The doctors are writing, 5-page autopsy report as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into a death investigation for sure.
Yeah, it's a huge investigative body that, the size, we're a very, very large county. The size of the deputies and the supervision and the clerical staff that we have there,
right?
I mean, that's bigger than some police departments.
Absolutely, and just to kind of give the people an idea of the area that we cover. So we have our Paris office, and they'll cover as far west as the Orange County line, as far north as the San Bernardino County line, as far south as the San Diego County line, and then they'll go as far east as Hagen-Lehman, which is just out past Casino Morongo. From there, our Indio office will pick up at Hagen-Lehman and go all the way out to the Arizona border. So we do have a pretty big area. Even though we're not the largest county, we do have a pretty big area.
It is a big area.
Yeah.
And, the size and the remoteness sometimes. I mean, we just had the hiker that was killed over the weekend, and that was a long ways out. That was a hike for you all to get in there.
Right.
We had to fly the helicopter in to get them out. We're very remote. We're very large. It's 7,000 something square miles.
Right.
That's a big department. We're a very large agency
for sure.
And with 2.5 million people, there's a lot of people dying.
Right. And with that being said, something that people may not know is that within the Coroner's Bureau, we do have specialized teams as well. So we have our CERT team, which is the Coroner Incident Response Team. I am a part of that team. So if we do have somebody in the remote areas, we'll work with aviation. We get to fly on the helicopters. We're hoisted down into the canyons sometimes, or we'll hover step and, we'll do a little hike into where that decedent might be. And sometimes we get a pretty good workout on those types of cases. We also have deputies that are on the dive team. And they'll go out if we have drownings at Lake Paris or Lake Elsinore. They'll go out as part of the dive team, and they'll also conduct the death investigation. We have our unidentified program as well, which is really starting to go into full force now. We're really trying to get these unidentified cases identified if we can. We now have the rapid DNA at our office, which has definitely helped, thankfully to the grants that we've gotten and so forth. And then just everything else that we've gotten in our office as far as our Lodox machine, which can take x-rays with just in a couple minutes. We can find a projectile in the back and the doctor can zoom in on it. It's pretty awesome, the modern technology.
Amazing.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And then we have our CT scanner now too, which will also help our doctors with the autopsies and determine whether or not an autopsy needs to be performed. So we have some pretty high-tech stuff.
Very nice.
We like it.
We're very proud of our Coroner's Bureau, the work that you all do, and it really does take a special person to be able to do it. You have to not only want to be a deputy and want to be in law enforcement, but you have to have that ability to separate yourself enough to concentrate on that investigation at hand, even though you're not speaking to someone. Absolutely.
And one good thing about all of our deputies and our sergeants, really just all of our staff, is everybody is really good about debriefing each other. I remember one time I went out on a triple homicide in the city of Riverside, and between the 3 victims, two of which were children, it was an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old. My son was 3 at that time, so it kind of hit me, but you get into work mode. I always say it's work now and cry later. And by the time I got back to the office, my sergeant was like, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay. And even the following day, somebody had called me. I just want to make sure you're doing okay. And it's like, you don't really realize what you're doing when you're out there as far as what you're seeing. And then you finally sit down and you're like, whoa, what did I just see out there? So, we are human. We're all affected by it.
Absolutely.
There have been times where I think all of us have shed a tear or two on scenes. There's some pretty gnarly things out there that we see, and even just deaths of children, making a death notification, knocking on somebody's door and letting them know that their loved one is never coming home again. To me, that's the hardest part of our job, really, in dealing with the kids. Yeah,
there's that persona of a cop, of a deputy being this stoic, no emotion, facts only type of a person, but the reality is we're all moms and we're all dads, and we have emotions just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And you said it good. I don't know if I've ever heard it been said like that. I think there's a lot of crying later that happens that we may just not want to admit to, because we're supposed to be having that stoic persona, and the reality is nobody's like that.
No.
So it's we see the things that we see are not what the normal person sees. You mentioned people on the freeway driving by and they just want to see a glimpse of that. It's not glamorous up front.
Right.
It's not glamorous when you get up close and you're seeing mangled bodies or bullet holes or missing body parts. There's a lot of things that we have to remain so professional. We have a job to do. It's so the deputy responding, it's their job to secure and figure out the basics. But when they call you out there, it's your job to figure out what happened and how and why. And it's a process. It's not just just come out and anybody can do it.
Right. No, and we do have people that will come in for ride-alongs. Well, not so much now, but, we're trying to get back into the whole ride-alongs and such. And, people think, oh, I could totally do this job. And they come in and they're like, not going to do it. Can't handle it. Even just on a fresh death, it's just completely different than what you see on TV.
Yeah. I think that's what I get the most from the public is, well, they saw it on TV.
Right.
And why can't we do that? Why did it take longer than 60 minutes, not counting commercials?
Right.
The TV has done a disservice to us a little bit.
For sure.
But what you see on TV for the most part is real. It's not as fast.
It's a little played up. If we happen to be a little more modern and high-tech technology, if we had a lab in our office, we might be able to get those toxicology screens a little bit quicker. But that is something else that we have had access to just recently, is that they can do a faster toxicology screen to determine if somebody has fentanyl in their system, methamphetamine, cocaine, stuff like that, so that we don't have to have the families wait 6 to 8 weeks to get those results.
Yes, and my ears just perked up, and these episodes, when we do these podcasts, they are live. They are not edited. I didn't tell you what we're going to talk about.
Right.
You didn't tell me, and we didn't go over anything. But what you just said, I'm hoping that either our board of supervisors are listening, or enough people out there to call our board of supervisors and tell them of the need for us to have our own lab.
For sure.
That is something that we've been talking about. We're such a big agency that we certainly do need our own lab.
Right.
So we're not waiting on the state for months and months and months and months on simple results.
Yeah.
Drug results, sometimes, we can get those quick from a lab, but it certainly would be nice if we had our own way of doing it.
Absolutely.
It certainly make our jobs a lot quicker, convenient, easier, and really, in the end, it's providing a better service to the public in that they get that expeditiously instead of months down the road.
Right. And, and with that being said as well, even with our examinations that we do perform, whether it's an external examination or an autopsy, with our department, one thing that I really pride our department in is that we do try to have a pretty fast turnaround to have those decedents released to the mortuaries once the examination is complete. Typically, it's 24 to 48 hours, but that also depends on the day of the week and, what else is happening within the county. So that's another good thing, because some agencies, unfortunately, they're so understaffed and they're keeping decedents in their offices for, weeks to months on end. And so that's one good thing about our bureau, is that we really do try to expedite the examination so that the family can proceed with their services. Nobody should have to grieve and wonder what's going on at the coroner's office.
Or drag that grieving process on
right.
as long as possible.
Exactly.
I mean, we want it over with as quick as we can for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good.
So,
anything else you want to add about the excitingness of your job? Or
gosh. Well, I love this field. Obviously, I've been in it for well over 25 years. And one thing that I like about it is it's something new every day. I'm not sitting in an office just answering the phones every day. I could go to 5 different drug overdoses, and they're always different circumstances. It could be, unfortunately, the transient that's out on the roadway, to just somebody that's in a middle-class family, to somebody that's in a high-class family that overdoses. It's just always a different set of circumstances. And that's one thing that I really like about my job.
Any case that stands out in your career?
Yeah, we go back to talking about work now and cry later. When I worked in LA County, I was called out to a homicide, and it happened to be in the apartment complex that I was living in. And we got there, and the investigator was getting the name of the decedent. And I said, I went to school with a guy with that name. That's weird, but what are the chances? And your adrenaline's going so much that you kind of don't really think too much about it. And like I said, it was a homicide. Unfortunately, he was brutally murdered over a Nintendo because his brother owed some people some money. And when I got in and looked at him, I said, that's not him. And they went and asked where he worked. And I had even told my investigator, I said, if they say this place at the mall, it's him. And they came back and they said, this is where he worked at. And I just,
makes it very, very personal.
Yeah. And they said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm good. I got home and I called my mom. I lived with he was my boyfriend at that time, but he's now my husband. Lived with him. And I called my mom and I said, you're never going to believe what I just did. And she said, what? And I said, I just worked on this person. Like, I can't believe this happened. And it's just something, it's burned into my brain, and, it will always remain there. But one good thing about it is that I was able to help the family kind of understand what was going on with the process and everything. So that's always a good thing.
You had that personal touch for them too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are some cases that just, you never forget about them. They're just kind of permanently burned into your brain, and you just don't forget about them.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good field. We like it. Everybody that's in our field is there because they like it. It's not because they have to be there. It's not because they want to look at dead bodies all day long.
And no matter what, it's exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, it's something different every day, and that's what we like.
So we've been talking about really much, about your day-to-day job and you're dealing with death investigation and everything else, but that's not all our coroner deputies do. You're engaged quite a bit with community outreach.
We are, especially with this time of year. We have our high school juniors and seniors who are going to prom, they're going to graduation. So we participate quite a bit in the Every 15 Minutes program, which is focused around youthful drunk driving, pretty much. Usually the coroner is asked to go out there and participate in a mock traffic accident scene. We roll up, we conduct the investigation at the scene for just a couple minutes. And then typically we'll give a presentation in the classroom as well to the participants of that program. And it just kind of sheds a little more insight to them as far as driving under the influence during these times. If you're going to party, do whatever you need to do. But trust me, your parents want you to come home. They'd be more happy if you call them at 2:00 in the morning and say, hey, I'm drunk, please come and get me, as opposed to now I'm knocking at your door.
Absolutely. We'd like to stop that from happening so we don't have to go out and do the normal part of our job.
For sure, for sure. We also go into our classrooms through our local high schools as well, and give presentations just on the coroner's office. Our administrative deputy coroner just did a presentation at San Jacinto High School for their criminal justice class. I think it was on courtroom testimony. So that's good because, again, we do get called into court as well. I was just in court last week on a homicide investigation from 2020, so we have to prepare for that as well. But it's good to get out there and do these career days. I did a career day at my daughter's high school in Nuevo a couple years ago, and that was a lot of fun. Because again, a lot of times the kids don't know what we do or what is the coroner? Sometimes they just don't know. So it's good to get out there and educate people, especially our younger kids, and let them know what the coroner's office is about. And then, of course, this past weekend, we had the expedited hiring event at BCTC, which was a lot of fun. And we were invited to come out there. Thank you very much. We had a great outcome, especially for, the coroner's office. We had a lot of people that came up and were really interested. So, it's just getting out there and getting the coroner's office out there and telling people what it is that we do that really helps a lot.
Very good.
So
we can always use more help.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you.
Corporal Amy Roberts from our Coroners Bureau, thank you very much for joining us today and filling us in on all the interesting things that come out of the Coroners Bureau. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. For all of you, thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you next time on the RSO Roundup.